In this episode of Hot Hardware's 2.5 Geeks, we're going to be pushing some packets with some special friends from Intel, Wi-Fi 6E, and why you should care. Next. Welcome back, ladies and germs, brothers and sisters, to yet another fine episode of Hot Hardware's 2.5 Geeks live stream. The cast for geeks and internet connected folks alike, and we're gonna be talking about lots of things in networking, internet networking, and Wi-Fi networking, and all that good stuff. Packets will flow today, but before we get to our special guests, let's say hello to the usuals. Marco Chiappetta is here, the incomparable Marco Chiappetta. Good to see you, buddy. How's it going today?
Going pretty good. Cannot complain. Things are all right.
You're looking incomparable, I might add.
Oh, well, thank you. You're so kind.
I'm paid to say that, but it's okay. Chris is here. He's behind the knobs and dials. Good to see you, or not see you, buddy, or maybe we will see you. I don't know. Will we see you today, or will we just hear from you? Okay.
I'll just be the disembodied voice today. So howdy, everyone.
Pay no attention to that man behind the curtain. Chris Getting is with us as well. And yes, again, some very special guests from the folks at Intel. We have with us today Eric McLaughlin, Vice President, Client Computing Group, General Manager, Wireless Solutions Group at Intel. That's a lot of titles.
A lot of words.
And Bob Grimm, General Manager of Killer Networking Products, also of Intel. Welcome to the stream, gentlemen. Good to see you.
Yeah, great to see you as well. Thanks for having us on.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a while since we've been here. You know, I think it's been pre-pandemic time, so it's good to be back.
A couple of years at least, I think, and lots of happenings have gone on since then. Whether you talk about pandemic happenings or business happenings, lots of things going on at Intel. You guys launched a new entire new platform recently, Alder Lake. Exciting stuff, and of course, connectivity is important to all kinds of platforms, whether they be Alder Lake or otherwise. So we'll be talking about that quite a bit today. But let's talk about you guys first. Let's get into what makes you tick. Learn a little bit about you two before we dive in with some of the tough questions. We'll start with softballs, by the way, and then get to the real nitty gritty. But yeah, Eric, why don't we start with you, since we know Bob? He's kind of a regular. He's been on a couple times. But Eric, you are Vice President, Client Computing Group, and General Manager, Wireless Solutions at Intel. That's a lot. As we said earlier, your purview runs the gamut on anything that's wirelessly connected or just networking in general.
Nope. When people ask me what I do, I generally don't lead with my title. I just tell them I run wireless at Intel. So it's Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, cellular. We've had WiGig, which was 60 gigahertz. Solutions in the past, and we continue to look at other radios and technologies that might be needed to connect devices, and so that's what I do. Been at Intel just over 21 years, and been in the wireless business 17 of that. So I love wireless. I'm passionate about these technologies. I've been around long enough to see a ton of evolution and capabilities, and there's just more and more innovation to come. So it's an awesome place to be, and I really appreciate the chance to share with you guys today some dialogue on what's happening in the world of wireless.
Yeah, absolutely. Wi-Fi 6E is what we'll be digging into deeply here today, and other questions as they come up. Certainly in the chat, folks, fire away with any questions you might have for Intel. You've been with Intel a long time, Eric, and I can see just from your surroundings in your office that your skeletons are actually out of your closet. They're not in your closet.
Yeah, I always tell people that was the last host that asked me a bad question. So, fire away, man.
Well, I guess I'll be thinking about the good questions then.
Intimidation out of the gate.
I like it. This Eric, you're an Irish guy, but you sound like me and Marco, a couple of Italians with a little He was a nice host, and then he disappeared. I don't.
and the worst part is I assured them that Eric was a great guy, and you guys would like him. And here we go. He's already coming out swinging.
It's good. I like that. I like that. Bob, you're general manager of Killer Networking, and I know Intel acquired Killer a little ways back. What's new for you these days? What are you responsible for in Intel with Eric and on his team?
Killer, as the name implies. So yeah, so we got bought in May of 20, so almost a year and a half ago now. And I got to tell you, it's been a wild ride, and it's been a lot of fun. But it's a change coming to a new company. What I did at when we were Rivet Networks is I did marketing and sales, and we come to Intel and hey, we have marketing teams and we have sales teams. So now I'm doing product management and responsible for the Killer line and the roadmaps and working with our teams to make sure we have the right features and right products at the right time and integrated with Intel's platform. So it's actually been pretty great.
And Killer, the brand of product that incorporates gaming focused or gamer focused sort of features, but certainly for other applications as well. But whether it be packet shaping, quality of service kind of stuff for best ping times and all that good stuff. That's sort of your baby. Is that part
That's
of
my
the,
baby?
the
I was
networking stack?
I was one of the original founders of the brand and the products, and it's been near and dear to my heart really for over 15 years now. So it's a pretty neat. It's pretty neat to see something live this long and really continue growing over that time. Feel pretty lucky.
Yeah, absolutely. These days to have that kind of longevity, kudos to you and the Killer team. How is the integration going? Before we'll get into the technology, but how's the integration going? Eric, you folks scoop these guys up. Has it been all sunshine and roses, or there's always challenges, I'm sure, but
oh yeah. Whenever it's probably easier for the integration's probably easier for me than it is for Bob and team, right? When you join a big company like Intel, there's training to take and classes you have to do and certifications or whatever that just feel like overhead, in comparison to not having to do those things before. So I'm sure there's been some rocky roads there, but I actually think overall the integration's going really well. We chose to make this a pretty simple integration. We just folded, all of what used to be Rivet Networks in under my team. So, we own, the same group of functions that they did in their individual instantiated business, just transferred over. So we've tried to keep it simple. But at the same time, give them access, to the 1,000-person engineering team that we have that runs all of the wireless, solutions that we deliver. The world-class validation capabilities that we bring and testing and performance management, all those things that we bring to the table as Intel, as well, of course, as Bob mentioned, our sales and marketing assets that Intel has, as well as pushing our marketing and brand into the market. So I think we've tried to take advantage of the best of both worlds and allow the Rivet team to continue to be agile and small and focused on what they're doing. One of the best pieces of advice we got it was actually my boss's boss when we were doing the final stages of the acquisition is just don't let Intel love them to death, right? Intel's big and they could love them to death. So we've tried to take that into account and make sure that we are very focused on what this team is doing and make sure we don't love them to death. But we've grown the team, about 30% since we did the acquisition. So and that'll continue in smart ways as we move forward. So far so good on the integration, and the team's been hitting all their deliverables. I mean, financially as well as product wise. So right now, I think it's going great. I don't know, Bob, you may have a different opinion.
I was going to ask, how's the business going since all of these great Intel resources have been brought to bear for you, Bob?
It's actually gone really well. It's funny, the two things that jump out at me when I think about it is, we as a small company would struggle to have all the communications and dialogue and intersect points with our customers, and all of a sudden now we're really part of a bigger company that has those in place. So we've actually grown the business quite a bit. We have a lot more design wins, more customers. It's overall been really good. The thing that's really encouraging from a long-term standpoint, though, is you get when an integration happens, it kind of happens in phases, and I think this was part of the not loving us to death. But once we really got integrated into the 1,000-person engineering team that Eric mentioned, our eyes opened pretty big, because all of a sudden it's not 4 people in a whiteboard thinking of what type of features we should go create, and what would our customers value and our partners value. I mean, we've got some of the smartest people in the world, and I still remember the first time I saw the spreadsheet of features that Intel's working on, and it's overwhelming. I mean, there's a whole lot that is going on right now, and so yeah, it's been great, and I think from a long-term standpoint, it really gives me a lot of confidence that Killer's really going to continue to be relevant into the future. And yeah, I think in the end, it's consumers that are going to win with Killer, because it's just going to keep getting better and better.
Yeah, good stuff. And to be clear, Intel Silicon is what powers the solutions. Killer technology baked in with that, whether it be firmware and software and all that good stuff, right?
Yep, that's right. Yep.
Correct.
And it had been that way for several years. We'd partnered with Intel, and we were very upfront that we use the same silicon. The software we wrote for it just uses the chip in a little bit differently than the OS does, and takes a little bit more advantage of the hardware that's there. So we had a real strong base on which to join the company, and I feel like we're just working a lot more closely with the people we already worked with before, but and at a lot deeper level.
Gotcha. Makes sense. Good stuff. Marco, I know you've got some questions. I've been monopolizing the mic here with these guys for a little bit. Why don't you jump in? I know you got a few things on the tip of your tongue as well.
Well, it's the timing of the integration is interesting, because it would seem with the pandemic and literally everybody working from home, the importance of Wi-Fi, it just got exponentially more important for most people. As soon as they started working from home, they realized how crappy their routers were, how unreliable their Wi-Fi was, and everybody upgraded. There was a stretch there where you couldn't buy, top end routers, and everybody needed new webcams, et cetera, et cetera. What kind of insights did you guys glean from the pandemic? What are you seeing in terms of, not necessarily complaints, but information provided by customers in terms of Wi-Fi connectivity and what they were looking to fix or enhance, what have you?
Yeah, so I'll start, and Bob, you can add on to that. But
Sounds great.
you hit on one of the key things, right? Wireless has always been important, but the pandemic just exposed to a group of people that maybe weren't, I guess, internalizing that as much as maybe they should have, of just how important that connection is. As you said, right, you kind of went from snacking. If you were an enterprise user, you spent most of your day in the office. You'd come home and you'd do maybe a quick email or send a presentation you just worked on. You were on your Wi-Fi at home, maybe for an hour, as you were just cleaning up some stuff and sending it on. But when you have 2 people working from home, 2 people educating from home, one of your teenagers playing games, suddenly that Wi-Fi system becomes, critical, because all of those things are critical. And, even just connecting during the height of the pandemic, when, lockdowns were in place, people just connecting to loved ones was critical. And you weren't necessarily, used to having to do all that at the same time on the same network. So one of the things that, happened, for me anyway, is that I became super popular with the other executives at Intel that were wondering how to get their Wi-Fi network fixed. And I can't tell you how many people I was just at Intel that I was counseling with on, what to go buy, how to implement it, why it was important, why should they buy the next generation instead of the cheap one, and so we really uncovered, as you mentioned, Marco, that people may not have been paying attention to, to what they had and needed really at home until now. So we've seen things from I need more bandwidth to I need a better way to manage that bandwidth. I need it to be consistent and reliable, and I need it to connect to way more devices than I've ever needed to connect it. And I need to use it for a lot longer than I've ever needed to use it before. So those were the main things that we saw. And as you stated, tons of, sales have gone well, right? For a lot of people in the industry, including Intel, in this situation, as we tried to help people resolve those challenges.
I bet,
stuff.
Absolutely. I'm sure. Bob, were you going to jump in there? Did I just interrupt you?
Oh, no, not at all. I could certainly talk as long as you want me to, though. But no. Yeah.
Just to build on what Eric was just saying, my wife got me a T-shirt years ago because I have a huge family. Every time I go to a gathering, I'm the computer geek. I'm the one that's got to fix the computers, whatever. And my shirt said, no, I will not fix your computer. I feel like I needed to get a new one that says, no, I cannot upgrade your wireless network, because everybody was asking why their connection stinks. I think networking is so crucial for everybody, but it's also a black box for lots of people. They don't understand, there's your broadband speeds, there's your internal Wi-Fi network, there's your wired bandwidth from your router to the rest of your network. There's so many intricacies that people needed to think about through all of this. And I think it still hasn't sunk in, and why some of the newer devices are better, not only in terms of the enhanced wireless connectivity, but the faster processing inside the routers. There's just so much to consider.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And work from home, definitely a forcing function for you folks. So, that's one of the things that just exposed a lot of these weaknesses that Marco was pointing out and that you were pointing out. And suddenly you became the popular guys, like big time.
We were doing truck rolls, right? I was sending guys from the team out to people's houses, when they were comfortable letting people in the door. We were sending people out to other people's houses to help them get their networks up and running in a way that allowed them to get their job done. So I also saw a vast increase in swearing early in the pandemic.
Did you see it?
Always helps if you swear.
I heard it. Yeah, because video wouldn't work at that time, so I only heard it. You're right.
Yeah. One of the things that is always interested to me about networking is that it's the thing that people don't want to think about. They just want it to work, and they just want it to be there and reliable, so they never have to, have an issue. And what happens is it just doesn't work that way, right? Problems happen. Networking is, in its very essence, especially historically, although it's a lot better now than it used to be, there's just inconsistencies at times. And when you think about it, when people have problems that they don't know how to fix, there's really only, one emotion that bubbles to the top, and that's anger. And so, you get all these people who are angry because they have problems they can't solve, and they don't know how to solve. They don't know who to call. And it just creates a really interesting dynamic, because all of a sudden we're having different conversations with our customers. And, we're talking about, different types of problems that we could solve together. And it's, there's nothing good about the pandemic, but it really has brought some light on the importance of networking. And we really want to do everything we can to give people good connectivity so that they can have the experiences they need and they can make the connections they need, when they're remote.
Amen. Yeah. We could probably wax poetic about the pandemic, and I think it did have some positive things that came from it. And, but we won't dig too much into it, but I think it made us all a lot more efficient, rather than, traveling to meetings all the time that maybe didn't always have to happen. We can do this, and we can do this well now. We all have nice cameras and good network connectivity and all that good stuff. And so, I think, there's certainly some growth there. And then the business growth and the growth in the PC industry as well, which was again, you think, oh, geez, the pandemic caused this surge in demand. So yes, sort of a silver lining in the cloud, but had to happen, at some point. Yep. And I think it kind of, it forced the issue for a lot of folks and got us a little bit better connected when we're not together. So nothing too wrong with that part anyways, I guess.
Yeah. I'll tell you, one of the most common tech support calls we got when we were at Rivet Networks, and I'm sure it happens at Intel too, is that we'd say, hey, look, we got your latest part, and it promises, gigabit plus, Wi-Fi speeds, and I'm getting, far less, like 200 megabits. And it's a real easy diagnosis. It's the router, the access point they're using at home it's just dated and it's old. And one of the the things I always tell people is make sure whoever you have your if you use the router that comes from your ISP, don't be bashful about calling them and saying, I need the latest, I need the new one, because if you let the same access point sit there for years, you're allowing yourself to have a bad experience. So keeping ahead of the technology is really important, and yeah, that's something we all learned the hard way here.
Be the squeaky wheel and demand your Wi-Fi 6E. Dagnabbit.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, we should probably dive into that, Marco, right? The intricacies of the new Wi-Fi standard that we were talking about today, Wi-Fi 6E, and the E is critical. It's different than Wi-Fi 6 regular, right?
Absolutely.
I think that's actually, I'll say that's one of the things that I think would point out for people that don't understand some of the intricacies. 802.11 is is considered Wi-Fi, but there's so many suffixes and so many differences as you work your way up the stack, over the years. What separates Wi-Fi 6E from some of the previous Gen Tech? What are some of the features that consumers are most likely to appreciate with the latest standards?
Sure. So I'll start with Wi-Fi 6. We can go back further if we need to. But if you look at what Wi-Fi 6 did in comparison to Wi-Fi 5, so the key implementations in Wi-Fi 6 that actually impact users are two things. One is that the way Wi-Fi works in Wi-Fi 5 and before is it's called a contention-based network, where your client is basically the thing that's trying to get the attention of the access point and is saying, I'm ready, right, to transmit or receive. And then the access point, connects and allows that packet transfer to happen. So you can imagine, right, as you build these networks, I know for me, I have 21 devices active on Wi-Fi at any given time in my house right now. And that's down from when my kids were home. My kids are all at college or elsewhere at this point. So, I used to have more, and all of those devices screaming, for attention. The network's not very efficient. It still works. It's just not very efficient. So Wi-Fi 6 came along and changed the way that the network works. OFDMA is one of the acronyms used, but essentially the access point becomes the manager of the network connections. So the access point starts to look at all of the devices that are connected and reaches out to each of them and tells them when it's your turn to do what you need to do. So the network becomes extremely efficient. It's managed. It's not contention. It's managed. And so it works a lot more like the cellular base station works, right? Where the cellular base station actually controls which clients have what airtime and for how long and what bandwidth they have. That's exactly how the Wi-Fi network works as you go into Wi-Fi 6. The other thing that happened is we started seeing increased channel bandwidth, right? So you could actually go to 160 megahertz channels, and get a wider channel, which allows faster speeds. So that's kind of what the Wi-Fi 6 did in relation to Wi-Fi 5 before it. What 6E is all about is building on what happened in Wi-Fi 6 by adding an 1200 megahertz of new spectrum to Wi-Fi. So before Wi-Fi 6E, you had 2.4 gigahertz, really small slice of spectrum, and you can kind of see it on this chart, the Wi-Fi 4, and 5. So you have kind of that single lane of traffic on the left-hand side, beginning with the yellow square, purple square, green square. So really, really thin, 2.4 gigahertz. And by the way, everything that you own that does Wi-Fi from 1999 till now works in 2.4. And they're all asking contention, I want, right? So really small bandwidth, a ton of contention, almost an unusable service for anything of significance, and the channel bandwidth is very limited. Wi-Fi 4 and 5 timeframe, you got into adding the 5 gigahertz range. And for a while, that was great. There was hardly anything that would work in there and interfere. Microwave ovens could interfere. If you had a decked cordless phone that operated in 5 gigahertz, you might see that interfere. There's a little bit of overlap with some of the Bluetooth channels, but very, very small. Those kind of things would happen. But that's also filled up now too, right? Where everybody realizes 2.4 is super busy. 5 is better, but it's also channel bandwidth limited, right? You're only going to 80 megahertz channels, and the amount of spectrum in 5 gigahertz and 2.4 is overall small. 6E comes in and dwarfs all that. You can see that on the right-hand side. It's huge amounts of spectrum. It's more spectrum in one fell swoop than you had in 2.4 and 5 gigahertz combined. And it's so large that depending on how governments approve 6E in their geography, you can have anywhere from 3 to 7 new 160 megahertz channels. And so to give you a view, right, in Wi-Fi 4, you were probably going 30 megabits per second. Wi-Fi 5, you may get to the 100 range. Wi-Fi 6, you're now actually, at the end of Wi-Fi 5, they opened up bigger channels. You were able to get into the almost 1 gig. Wi-Fi 6, you were into the gig and gig plus. I actually demoed to the chairman of the FCC at the time. It was literally the last flight I took before the pandemic locked us down. I got approval to travel while I was sitting on the tarmac on the plane. I was like, I'm going anyway. It's the chairman. So, we got there and showed him in the building 1.8 gigahertz or gigabits per second, real live in the conference room at the FCC. So this was before 6. This was, showing them Wi-Fi 6 capacity. And then with 6E, we were able to show them up over 2 gigabits per second in a really clean environment, really clean network, right? So this is huge. Wi-Fi 6E opens up more spectrum than we've had ever in the history of Wi-Fi. Worldwide, so the US opened all 1200 megahertz for unlicensed use. We see the same thing happening in South Korea. You see the same in Brazil. Some of EU is opening up about 500 megahertz of that 1200 to start with. So we're getting, worldwide, you're starting to see countries open up this spectrum. But it really paves the way for two things. A lot of innovation, because now you got this bigger bandwidth that we can work with. And the second thing is it paves the way for Wi-Fi 7, which is going to come along, and you're going to get 320 megahertz channels, and you're going to see over 300 gigabits or 30 gigabits per second, capability in that time frame. So huge opportunity with the impact of Wi-Fi 6E.
Wow. I didn't. How close is 7, by the way?
20 end of 23, early 24.
Okay. All right. So 6E is where it's at today. That 6 gigahertz band also good for dedicated backhaul, right? Does it not part of the one of the key features?
Yeah, you'll see outdoor use of this technology for backhaul. Certainly, there will be companies that take advantage of that. There's some that are using 60 gigahertz as well, which is also a Wi-Fi frequency, not necessarily used today for access, right? Connecting a device to the internet. But 60 gigahertz and 6E can both be used for this wireless backhaul, depending on the the size of pipe you need.
Gotcha. Marco, what else we got?
Yeah. So how has engagement been with business customers in terms of Wi-Fi 6E uptake? We have lots of enthusiasts and gamers, and someone like me, I'm always frustrated with the speed. I can pull files off my network attached storage. We got lots of gamers on here that are always frustrated with ping times, etc. And it seems that the selection of really top Wi-Fi 6E stuff is just now starting to sort of explode. How has the uptake been, and how do you see it going moving forward?
And so there's huge pent up demand for this capability, and we're seeing a huge opportunity and uptick in Wi-Fi 6E. Just from a silicon perspective, something that we normally don't share economic information too broadly, but there's not a ton of impact to the cost of our product. Certainly we had a lot of development work, right? Millions of dollars of development work to make it happen. But as far as the price of the silicon to our customers, it's not a huge increase to add this new spectrum. And so, the economics are really good, right? It's not like you're gonna have to pay, $10 more for a better Wi-Fi solution, at least on the client side where we focus. The AP side has a little bit more a bigger challenge of implementing this and the radio frequencies and the types of antennas they use, etc. But in general, economically, it's not that hard to add this extra spectrum. Some of the other features that are coming with Wi-Fi 7 will probably drive some costs, but I think that the increase we're going to see in 22 is significant. We're already seeing next year somewhere around 30% of our mix will be 6E. And it usually takes 3 years to get there. We think we'll get to 50% plus in with this new technology. So I think it's great. We're seeing it already, right? It's in phones, it's in access points, it's in all sorts of devices. We're shipping in the tens of millions of units on the PC side. So we think the uptake is strong, and it's going to just continue to get stronger.
Yeah, and the only part I'd add to that is and the reason we kind of scheduled this with you guys when we did is that we've actually been selling some 6E parts since early this year, and it's great that we did that, but Microsoft really didn't enable the feature to work with Windows until the October release of Windows 11. So it's real timely to have this discussion now, because people who've already bought it, who are considering to buy it, access points support it, the OS supports it. There's really no reason that people at home can't go, get these speeds that you're seeing that Eric was mentioning. And one of the big things that everyone has reasons on why they don't want to make a change or not. And one of the things that I always heard is, look, I can't get more than a gig to my house. Why would I care if I can get 2 gig wireless? Well, it cracks me up because over the summer, Google came and just tore up our streets. I mean, they drilled these paths down the street, laid fiber down, and it was kind of irritating, but I was kind of excited about it. I figured they're going to do something cool. Now I can get 2 gigabit at my house. So, Eric, I don't really want to put you on the spot, but you may get an expense report here soon.
That's a good kind of expense report.
Yeah.
No,
Let's
for the
justify
street tear up, I'm okay. Yeah.
So that's one of the things that drives me a little nuts, right? With current networking, most people think, okay, my broadband speed is my network speed. Why do I need any more? But I know this is limited to mostly geeks like me and maybe some more enthusiasts, but there's a lot more to networking than what goes from your PC out to the web, right? I may perhaps have a server in the basement holding some very large movie files, perhaps, and theoretically and transferring a 42 gig 4K file on my PC, which is hardwired to gigabit, with gigabit networking, should not take as long as it does, right? And you can now get Wi-Fi networks that from the device to the router, that link speed is faster than gigabit, but then from the router out, it's still probably limited. And that speed, though, for the wireless, if you have multiple wireless devices sharing among those devices, is great. It's better than the wire.
Yep.
But they confuse where they need that bandwidth and where they need that connectivity. And I think this is I literally I could talk about this stuff all night because it's such a pet peeve of mine, and it's so hard to explain to people. Like no, this is why you need it. I know you think you're only paying for 30 megabit internet. Why do you need anything faster? And it's because everything else on your network has its own connection as well, and people don't get it.
Hold on.
Yeah,
I think I need to make a change to the stream overlay real quick. Hold on.
Oh no.
There we go.
Uh-oh. Oh, thanks.
Now?
Is that a joke?
That's a joke. That's a joke.
Do we start
That
over?
went right out of my head, kid.
No,
I was wondering.
totally agree with everything Marco's saying.
I was going to panic there.
No, I was going to say on that, Marco. We used to actually do. We have some pretty impressive labs at Intel. One of them, we actually own an enterprise building that we don't actually sit people into work, but we use it to test what the experience is going to be, whether you're in a conference room, a cube farm, training class. We can outfit this thing with any type of APs or mix of APs that we want. Number of clients is unlimited, and we have robotics that can run motion studies throughout all overnight. They can
Coolest building ever, guys.
Yeah, it's totally cool. And in that environment, we can test the benefits of increased speed between your AP and your client, even with a limited back channel, right? Even with a limited connection to your ISP. And you may not see 100% of your capabilities utilized, but even in that environment, you get a 30 or 40% increase in your overall experience, even if your connection to the ISP is limited. So it's absolutely worth it to update the client and AP side of things when you can, and with the way things are headed price wise, getting a gig or better connection to the home is getting much more affordable.
Absolutely. We had an interesting question come in from Paul, and he's talking about next gen features versus taking advantage of consumer hardware that's already in place. In other words, you might not have clients that support 6E. How do you sort of rationalize that and drive the industry forward for adoption? The other thing that occurred to me is, can we tell folks what the benefits are for legacy hardware on a 6E access point, for example? Are there any intrinsic benefits there in general?
Yeah, so I was going to jokingly say the answer is just buy new stuff. Right, that's my answer to everything. Buy everything new. No, I think that it is a bit of a balancing act. Especially the way things are trending. Lately, right? 6 and 6E came out pretty close together. It's usually a couple, 2 to 3 years in between standards and evolutions, and that allows time for cost curves to come down and for people to be able to afford that next upgrade. But things are kind of have accelerated a bit over the last couple of years. So, I think that goes back to a little bit more normal as you look at, where Wi-Fi 6 and 6E came out and when we're going to see the first Wi-Fi 7 devices. But it is a bit of a balancing act, and you kind of need to look at how you're using your network and what's most important to you, and what frustrations do you have. The way I would put it today is there's absolutely no reason that you shouldn't be upgrading to Wi-Fi 6. You should put a Wi-Fi 6 access point at least, and 6E would be better. But if you want the real robustness capabilities of Wi-Fi, Wi-Fi 6 is an exponential leap from Wi-Fi 5. So at a minimum, I'd say invest to get to at least Wi-Fi 6. And then if your devices, PC, phone, or whatever, or 6E, you'll be able to take advantage of those a year or so from now when you upgrade that infrastructure. So, as far as intrinsic benefits to having a legacy device on a 6E network, that device is going to get some benefit from the overall efficiency increase in how that network is managed and utilized. But it won't see the type of increase that maybe it's 10%, maybe 15% of an exact number. They will benefit, but nothing compared to what you'd benefit if you upgraded, those other devices. I hope that helps. So did I miss anything in the answer?
No,
No, you
I
didn't.
think covered it pretty well. And actually, Bob, let's click back to you 1 second. You mentioned something that kind of pinged my radar a little bit. You said Windows 11 now brings this, interoperability level up.
Yep.
You telling me Windows 10 didn't really support it optimally? 6E, that is?
Windows 10 didn't offer the 6 gigahertz channel. It did not. So you really need Windows 11 to take advantage of it. The hardware's built for it. People who bought it future-proofed it, so now they can have it. But correct, it would absolutely work. It just would work in the 2.4 and 5 gigahertz band. And when I think about stuff like that. And by the way, Paul, I love your first and second question, which is, how do you balance this? Like, how do you balance that? You're coming out with a feature that comes out a few months ahead of OS support. And, we're never going to get the stars aligned perfectly as an industry. It will never happen. But, I can tell you that both where we are and with our PC OEM customers, pragmatism is really, really important. And, for example, we could, put out, products that there's no infrastructure for, and we could sell things that doesn't really, have an advantage to, most consumers. But, what we've decided to do, especially with Killer, is we've decided to take a look. Okay, most people have an internet connection and they have a computer and they have a Killer networking product. What can we do given that they have what they have, and they're not going to change it immediately. And so I'll give you a couple examples. One's Double Shot Pro. That's our technology where we let users use Ethernet and Wi-Fi at the same time. Marco, your comment, the networking stuff bugs you. It just bugs the heck out of me when, if to have Ethernet and Wi-Fi and have them both connected and not be able to use them the way I want. And with Double Shot Pro, we let users do that. We let them manage the, not only let them work, we actually let them, customize it. They can put, games and downloads over Ethernet and put everything else over Wi-Fi. They can do it however they want. So yeah, I mean, pragmatism is just incredibly important. And the other thing that we took a pivot on probably about a year before the acquisition was we were working with our customers, which are the PC makers, and we talk with them about what problems do they have. And if you think about it, support's a huge issue. And if you go through what type of support questions they get all sorts of things that boil down to networking or connection problems. It could be I can't connect to the internet. It could be YouTube slow. It could be there's email doesn't work right. It could be anything, but they all boil down to networking problems. And so we came up with this idea and said, most people just connect to a network and forget it and never look for other ones. So we have this feature called the Killer Intelligence Engine. And what we do is we scan networks around, and we know, because we integrate with, the OS, and we know what networks you've accessed before, and we know what access points are available. And we'll tell you, you're on the wrong access point. You ought to move to this one. And I tell you, it makes such a big difference. I mean, we can set up demos where we can give you a 900% improvement in latency. We can double your throughput just from moving you from an access point to another one, and that's it. Like, you're just on a less busy access point. And those type of things are things that we do real intentionally because we know that people don't have unlimited budgets, and we need to make the most of what they have. So we try to balance the newfangled, the new technology versus making the most of what people have in their homes. So it's a balancing act, but we do try.
Gotcha.
So building on that, Bob, I'm going to give you a feature suggestion for the Killer software moving forward.
Hold on, let me get my pen and paper.
No, this one's quick. You're probably already working on it.
Okay.
One of the things that ended up helping tons of people, I did help tons of people through the pandemic, optimize their networks and speed things up. Most people set up their router and they just leave it at defaults. And I've literally, and I'm not exaggerating, been to locations where 56 people are on the same channel. And if you scan the area
totally
with some
agree.
basic tool, scan the area for the channels, pick the least congested channel, boom, their performance was improved, significantly. Someone's got to have that tool built in and say, hey, your router is on channel 3, but everyone's on channel 3 in your area. You need to switch that. That's just a good little feature suggestion. But I'm going to sell a bunch of devices for you guys right now, because just to experiment. I'm logged into my router. I don't know if I'm going to get this to focus, but just to prove, I have right now 22 devices connected on my Wi-Fi right now. And as I'm streaming, talking to you folks, with the network running, when you have a good network and fast speeds, you can get 400 plus up and down, no problem. So if you have crap hardware on your network, replace it and make it faster. Your hardware readers.
What do you mean, Marco? Don't pull any punches, okay?
Oh my gosh, it drives me nuts.
But you bring up a good point. It's funny because, right, we find ourselves in all sorts of interesting situations trying to give people advice. And one of the simplest pieces of advice we could give is reboot your router once in a while.
Yeah.
It should, when you reboot it, pick the cleanest access point. It should. The other one that we tell people is update the firmware on your router, because if you do that, you keep it. And by the way, I've seen statistics from companies on how many people upgrade to firmware. Almost nobody does. It's almost unheard of. And so, upgrading your firmware can make a huge difference. So it's just little things like that. You're right, automating it. And I love your idea, and I think hopefully we'll be able to make you happy one day. But yeah, there's just little things we can do here and there that can make big differences. And
those are definitely some good points you make, Bob. And I think automating that in some sort of, usually, like you say, when folks set up a router or they bring in a new piece of equipment, the networking or otherwise, they follow most, especially mainstream users will generally follow the instructions. They'll install some software if it's suggested, and go through a quick step-by-step. Wizards are great for that. If you could, in your client software that gets installed, with the wizard and all that good stuff, sort of enable those things with one button interface, one click kind of interface simplicity. I think it could go a long way to, bring in some additional value. I don't know if you have that prominent now, but even simple stuff like firmware, like you noted, could that sort of functionality could make a big difference. Yeah, the UI. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a great idea.
Just some of the basic networkings. Put your router in a central location. Pick the cleanest channel. Make sure you're on the 5 gigahertz channel if you have it. It's just and update the firmware, and it's just those things alone. People are like, oh my gosh, my network's totally different. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
I think
you could get paid for that, by the way. You get paid by the hour to do that.
You can,
yeah. Plenty of people do. I think some of the mesh guys, because of the complexity of setting up a mesh network, tend to do that a little bit better. The setup process and the maintenance side of it as well, a little bit. Laptops, which you folks are obviously integrated in at the NIC level, a network interface card level, inherently don't have, it depends on the manufacturer, but a lot of them don't have that kind of that GUI or whatever ready to go. So maybe that's something Intel can help usher along.
Stay tuned.
Yeah.
There you go.
I just because I want to show off the props live, and I'm going to tee up Bob for some more stuff too, just so everyone realizes how long Killer has been at this. So this was Killer's first retail product.
Look at that bling.
Yeah, so that I met Bob. Dave and I first met Bob in Las Vegas at a blackjack table because he was wearing one of those Ks around his neck, and I'm like, hey, I heard of you guys, and we started talking. But that was, I don't even remember how many years ago that was, but that was the first Killer. This was one of the updates. I think this is the K1. This was the first PCI Express, and then there was this is the Killer 2100. So Bigfoot and Killer, well, the Killer brand has been around a long time, and one of the differentiators when you guys first hit the scene was your software that prioritized packets and originally helped get game packets in and out of the PC faster to help lower ping times. that has morphed a lot over the years. You guys offer a lot more than that now in the Killer control panel. Just so everyone understands exactly what that software does.
Sure.
Why don't you just give a little overview, and then maybe if you can explain where you'd like it to go. I know you can't disclose undisclosed features and things like that, but
Sure.
where you are now and where you'd like it to go would be great.
Sure. So just so everybody knows, what Marco is referring to is something called QoS, or quality of service. That's the industry term. Essentially what it means is Killer products take a look at all the network traffic that's coming in and going out of the PC, and we detect what it is, and then we prioritize it. And the whole goal is that we want the PC to really be in charge of which packets. If you're ever in a situation where packets need to get lost or dropped, we want the PC to make that decision. We don't want it being made randomly out on the internet. I know that sounds like it's hard to do. We spent over 10 years figuring it out, but that's what we do with Killer. And detection is by far the hardest part. Trying to figure out which packet is a voice versus a game versus a BitTorrent, assuming anyone would ever BitTorrent anything, theoretically. But but that's really hard. Once you actually get to the point where you can detect what things is, prioritizing is a little bit simpler. And then the idea is, when you're in these situations where your network is under contention and you've got too much traffic coming in and out of your PC, we make sure that the traffic that ultimately gets to the applications you're using is the what stuff you need. So your game traffic, your voice traffic, your video traffic, things like that. And it used to be, and I feel like I'm an old gamer now. I used to play games, and back when I was a lot younger, 25 plus years ago, you played a game, and there really wasn't internet back then. I mean, all you did was a game. You didn't have any other programs running. You just ran the game, and that behavior when the internet came out, that behavior kind of persisted, and people would only, with their gaming, they would only game over the internet. They do nothing else over the internet. That's completely different now. Now gamers, do all sorts of things. They game, they stream, they watch streams, they talk with friends, they listen to music. And what's amazing to me, and I've seen them do it, they watch TV and movies while they're gaming. And I don't mean like you and me gaming. I mean professional gamers. They'll have a screen with with The Office on it next to it that they're watching. And it's made for some interesting conversations with our customers, because there's still some people that believe that people don't multitask when you game. We have gone to professional gaming studios and where the teams play, and we've interviewed them and we've talked with them, with our PC partners. They all do it. They all multitask. And guess what? They all play over Wi-Fi. They say they don't, but when you start getting into asking questions, they do. There's certain times they play over Ethernet, but they play over Wi-Fi. And so I kind of forgot the original question, but about packet prioritization. And so because people are multitasking, the packet prioritization just really becomes critical in terms of making sure that the experience that people want is the experience that they're getting. And it makes a big difference.
Well, Marco and I were talking about packet prioritization and traffic shaping and QoS before the cast, actually. And one of the things that came to mind was, this seems like a perfect problem, or a well-suited problem, perhaps, for artificial intelligence to solve. So to help with your QoS, your packet prioritization, in identifying what the packets are and when, and what their priority should be, seems like a pretty good problem for an AI, right?
It does. Do you think we could get everybody watching to sign an NDA real quick?
There we go.
No, but you're right. You're right. Making decisions, having the computer, with AI and learning and optimizing things as it learns is absolutely something that we see a future for.
Gotcha. Can't get into the future products too much. We know that we don't want either of you to get shot, or us to get shot, or anybody to get shot. So all good there.
Well, you can see what happened to the guy who did it last behind Eric.
Yeah, loudmouth in the back there on the closet, I can tell. Yeah.
So, this one might not be something that you can answer directly. I don't want you to get in trouble with any of your partners, but it would seem that with wireless networking in particular, Intel is obviously in the client side. You guys make chipsets. You could probably enable much better overall optimization if you sort of controlled everything from the client into the router, et cetera. What are some of the things that access point manufacturers, router manufacturers aren't doing that you wish they were, that would help the end user experience, if that's even something that you want to delve into?
Hey, Eric, I'm gonna let you take the first stab at this one.
So first of all, what I'd say is that we have pretty good relationships with the chipset manufacturers, right? We do, collaboration in the standards. We also do collaboration in, co-engineering early on, right? So that when we get to, actually putting these things into the market, that they work together. One of the, I guess, things people don't necessarily understand is when the IEEE defines a standard like Wi-Fi 6 or 6E, for example, they put a lot of parameters around it, but they don't go into implementation, right? They don't say exactly how you get to those specific parameters. So silicon manufacturers, device manufacturers have a lot of opportunity to determine how it's implemented, which could create coexistence issues. Also, just things don't connect and work together the way they should. So there's a ton of industry collaboration to make that happen. And once you get to the WFA for certification, we've worked out a lot of that. And when you have devices like Intel in the test bed, you're actually getting testing done with the probably the most likely client you're going to run into, right? So there's a lot of work that gets done to make sure that all this basic functionality works. What do I wish they would do different? I think the AP guys are pretty early on in the in the mix, right? They start earlier even than the client side does for some of the work that has to be done. I think any time we can get earlier hardware for us, it makes our life a lot easier, and probably theirs too, because we're able to do earlier testing. I think some collaboration above the standard is probably the thing that I would say is most needed. That's the way that's the whole reason we bought Rivet, right? Was that we can do amazing things at the driver level, and all the work that we do in the standards to create exceptional leading products. But there's things over and above the standards which need to be done to take it to the next level. And that's where, the Rivet technology comes in, right? Where we're able to, do prioritization, AP selection, all sorts of things in the background that enhance the user experience without user intervention. So I guess, earlier testing is always a benefit, and probably collaboration above the standard, which I think would be a real benefit to everybody.
Gotcha. Should we toss this one in from Ian? I don't know if you can respond to that or not.
So there's CNVI. That's our integrated connectivity, right? So we have two types of solutions that we deliver. A discrete solution, which is everything on one PCB. It's the standard way that Wi-Fi solutions are put into clients. We also have an integrated connectivity where we take some of the Mac digital Mac functionality from both Wi-Fi and Bluetooth and put it into our chipset. Not the Wi-Fi chipset, but the CPU and companion chipset at the platform level. And then we have an RF companion that plugs in through a proprietary interface, into that chipset. The answer to the question is no, we don't expect to open up the CNVI standard, but we do, make it a standard interface. We have the right to optimize our products for Intel platforms and make Intel platforms work, the very best we can. Things like vPro management technology, as an example, and the Rivet technology that we're implementing as we continue to move forward, all will take advantage of that proprietary interface. It's our investment, our work, and our effort to make that happen. But it doesn't preclude, third-party, hardware from getting into an Intel platform. If somebody else's Wi-Fi is needed, it works. Is depending on how the OEM designed the platform. They have the ability to design for both, right? Flexible, either use our integrated connectivity or use any discrete connectivity. but why would you, take another Wi-Fi in a PC? You can go look at the reviews that are being done, and you'll see that from a PC perspective, we're the only ones in the industry that focus on delivering the best Wi-Fi for the PC. And our heritage with Windows and Chrome, we deliver the best product in the market for that segment by any measure.
Sounds good. Sounds good. One last question, and I think we're going to have to let you guys go. We're getting the bottom of the hour here. Looking forward down the roadmap, certainly you folks have pushed the transition to Wi-Fi 6E. Can we expect to see more of that from Intel? Eric, you'd mentioned Wi-Fi 7 earlier, and sort of the time frame for that, which is more like 2024. Just in general, I guess, parting words on that note. What can we expect from the Intel networking team and Killer moving forward in terms of standards and the next gen?
Yeah, so our next set of announcements, check out CES, right? We got some stuff being announced there that we're pretty excited about. You'll see, more emphasis on 6E. You'll see more emphasis on the work that we've been doing with the Killer team. So some kind of cool stuff coming that will be I think exciting to users. We also have some Bluetooth technologies that we'll be announcing, some new things that are coming there to enhance the experience that we're all using these things, right? And so we're trying to enhance the overall experience of anybody using these devices. So we've got some pretty exciting announcements coming out at CES, and next year we launch over 40 5G enabled platforms with the Intel 5G solution in our partnership with MediaTek. So you'll see some 5G solutions hitting the market in a significant way next year, and that obviously the 5G and Wi-Fi work really well together. And after that, we've got some other plans the following year that don't involve Wi-Fi 7, but just enhancements, again, using the acquisition of the Rivet Networks team. And so we've got a lot coming before we even get to Wi-Fi 7. And we're in an innovative time in the industry. We invest a ton in innovation across all of our technologies and radios. So you're not just hardware, but software too. So a lot coming in the next 6 to 12 months, and then the promise of Wi-Fi 7 coming after that.
Yep.
Sounds good.
The only thing, if I could add one more thing, is
go for it.
I genuinely believe Intel has the best Wi-Fi products. I believed it when we were Rivet Networks. I believe it now that we're at Intel, and I have all the confidence in the world that statement's going to be true, at least to me. I don't see that changing. So I hope that when you guys think about Intel and networking wireless, I hope that, given the history, given what we do, and like to Eric's point, if you look at the reviews, and you guys have written some of them of how Intel wireless compares to what's in the market. Right now frankly, we dominate it, and I expect that to continue. So I hope that there continues to be a lot of excitement. I hope there continues to be a lot of expectations, because we have a lot of cool stuff coming. So yeah.
Awesome. Good stuff. Well, thanks for joining us, gentlemen. Eric McLaughlin and Bob Grimm of Intel Networking. Great to have you guys on the cast.
Always great to see you guys.
Oh, fun.
So good. Yeah, so good to catch up with you guys. And we should also note that actually this week we will be announcing a giveaway, believe it or not, of an Intel Alder Lake powered system from the folks at Falcon Northwest. So it's going to be a beast, and we'll be announcing a giveaway sort of contest, like some socials and all that stuff, right, Marco?
Yeah, absolutely. I was planning to have that post ready to go, but the day got away from me. We have a super high, actually very similar to the video that we just posted the other day of the Falcon Northwest Alder Lake system with Core i9 12900K with the beautiful Intel graphics all over it. One of those guys with a couple of different components will be up for grabs. And like all our other giveaways, it's going to be super easy. Come by the site, like a couple of social media channels, participate, in some chats, and that's it. And then we'll let Gleam do its thing and randomly pick a winner. Someone's going to be really happy in a few weeks. I think we're going to make this one a Thanksgiving themed giveaway. So by Thanksgiving, someone should be gaming pretty hardcore on a brand new Alder Lake rig.
Someone's going to be pretty thankful on a killer Intel Alder Lake powered gaming rig. That's good stuff.
I love it.
Good stuff.
That's awesome stuff.
Yeah, man, good stuff.
Well, thanks
So
for
yeah,
having
great.
us.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, gentlemen. Eric McLaughlin, Bob Grimm of Intel Networking. Great to see you guys. You can find us on the web, folks, at hothardware.com, twitter.com/hothardware, youtube.com/hothardwarevids. Thumb up, subscribe, please, so we can notify you when we go live with another special guest. But this was fun, guys. It was really great. Thanks for putting us in the know on Wi-Fi 6E and why folks should care. It was great to see you.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot. Have a good
Take
one.
care. Bye.
All right,
Thanks a lot,
guys.
guys.
Take care. Good night, everybody, and thanks for stopping by.